Hey, welcome back everybody. Jeff Frick here, coming to you from the eGen Lounge. We're in the House of Blues in Mandalay Bay at Google Cloud Next, and it's all about agentic AI. If you're not on the agentic train, you will be soon because it's soon to leave the station. And we're excited to have somebody from Google who's not only applying it to for-profit organizations, but to public service, which is great because we all get the benefits, whether it's state, local, or federal. So we're excited to welcome in. He's David Robinson. He goes by Robbo, but I said, I got to get David Robinson. He's the Managing Director of Google Public Sector. Robbo, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you've been talking a lot about enhancing partner programs, getting more out of partners, making sure partners are qualified. Tell us about that a little bit, how the partner role has evolved and how it's really kind of a three-legged stool, the customer, the partner, and the crazy power of Gemini that's going to deliver great customer outcomes.
So, I mean, for me, the primary one is that we won't be able to grow and scale without our partners. Absolutely critical and fundamental to our growth. And you've seen, if you've walked around the conference at all, at the Mandalay Bay, you can see it is absolutely teeming with people. It was standing room only at the developer keynote, which I was sat in. I was learning about our new agentic development platform, but it was literally standing room only. The place was absolutely packed. So that gives you an idea of the demands that we're seeing from our customers. And this is, Google's not always traditionally been in that public sector space. They've only really been here for about 3 years. But I've seen, since I've arrived, a real change in the dynamic of what our customers are looking for, and they're coming directly to Google. And as a result of that, we're pushing more and more of our opportunities and our work out to our partner ecosystem. So for me, when I'm looking at what a good partner is, I'm looking for sort of three key things, really. The first one is, from a strategy perspective, we want some kind of alignment. I'm not saying that eGen should have the same strategy as Google, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying if we do have an understanding of what each of our strategies are, it makes the information flows between the organization and the prioritization a little bit easier.
Okay.
Second one for me then is technical depth. I mean, my role in Google is to make sure that we deploy our technology to meet the use cases of government. And if we don't meet those use cases, well then, we're not doing our job. And so I'm looking for technical depth from our partners like eGen in order to be able to meet those use cases. And then the third one for me is about the mission, and it's about our customers. If we can delight our customers, that's very, very high priority for me. But even above customer satisfaction is the mission. That's why we're here, that's why I do the job that I do. It's because it's something that's very passionate about in terms of allowing governments to use technology and citizen services and so on.
I'm just curious, what are some of the drivers on the government side, on the customer side, that's getting them to come to you and ask for help? Because they don't have the same aligned incentives as, say, maybe a for-profit organization. They're not necessarily known to be the most progressive or fast-moving types of organization, but what is it that's making them say, wow, there's an opportunity here to do something better for our constituents, you and me, and the people that we represent?
I'd say it's probably come from the consumer side, because we're all using these technologies when we're outside of our professional lives and we're outside of our offices. And they're recognizing the power that these types of technologies bring. And then you only have to sort of look in the press and then look to say, even from our adversaries, both nationally and internationally, they are embracing these technologies at an express rate. And I think that's really kind of jolted government across all sectors. I mean, I've never seen this level of interest or this level of speed that the government's moving at, and I think it's really about competitive advantage, an information advantage, and the only way to do that is by applying the latest technology tools that we have.
It's really interesting, right? The consumerization of IT has been a trend that was happening forever when the technology on our phone was much better than the technology we had at work to kind of drive adoption, so that's pretty interesting. The piece that's less clear, though, is the actual implementation process, and how do you break a long, slow requirements doc, RFP doc, send it out to bid, bring it back, run it through the whole process to get to something that's more small, nimble, agile, get some fresh wins, and then grow the pie. How are you seeing that change within the way the governments function to get new technology in the door?
So the easy thing would be to say we just use more AI, right? That would be the easy thing to say. We are doing that ourselves. I mean, we drink our own champagne or eat our own dog food. You know, choose your metaphor there. But in terms of being able to interpret requirements that are coming from government, we're using our own AI technology tools. And then we're using that to break it down into various different tasks and then generate a statement of work. We then have another agent that will check that statement of work to make sure that it's accurate and it meets the requirements. But we still always have a Mark 1 human in the loop that basically ultimately reviews that before it's then published and it goes out. And what I'm keen to do is educate government as much to say, if we're doing that on our side, why are you not doing it on your side? Because the level of requirements that's placed upon the individuals that's working inside of government is still very high. And I think that the lid's started to come off now in terms of saying, yes, if we utilize these technologies, we're not going to get more staff, but we're going to be able to do more things with the staff that we've got.
Well, I was going to ask you, right, there's always a split with new technology implementation. There's this is great, we're going to save a lot of money, but really where the transformation comes and where the big opportunity is, hey, this is great, we can do so much more. How are you seeing that kind of play out in the real world as you work with some of these clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of watching Jevons paradox kind of play out in front of you, you know. As the cost per token goes down, the requirements and the demands go up because the number of use cases are infinite. And this platform shift, which I think is different from other platform shifts that we've seen in the past, like going to cloud, going to mobile, going to service orientation, etc., is that this is largely natural language driven. So the accessibility of these capabilities is much broader than I've ever seen before because you can just interact with it with a chat page and get it to do things for you. Whereas traditionally you would require pro code developers, you'd need testers, you'd need business analysts and so on. We're getting to the stage now where people can write their own agents sat at their own desk to automate some of the drudgery that they have to go through on a day-to-day basis.
It's interesting, I talked to Carolina Parada at a Humanoid Summit show from Google Gemini foundation model for robotics. And this natural language interface has just changed everything on the robotic side from training and understanding. It's really interesting how, again, kind of that LLM approach in terms of the human language translation into something the machine knows how to do has changed the way that, you know, it literally is finally no-code coding because you just talk to the crazy thing.
And the thing that I'm excited about is, you know, the models today are as bad as they ever will be today because they're only going to get better. And when we move into full multimodal, and I'm not talking about from a data perspective, I'm talking about from an interaction perspective. It's now you can use voice much more than you were ever able to do before.
Right.
We can start to bring in gestures as well to sort of explore data, visualize data in different ways, and almost kind of explore it at the speed of thought in a way. So that's a bit that I'm kind of really interested in because I come from a background where you have a lot of data and information that you have to process for intelligence purposes or defense purposes. So tactical advantage in terms of that is critically important. If I can interact in that in a way that I can set off a number of different hypotheses by utilizing the tools and interact with it in a very fluid way, I'm going to therefore get decision advantage over my adversary.
So tell us a little bit specifically about Gemini for government. We've talked a lot about Gemini for enterprise here. Everybody knows Gemini on their Chrome and their worksheets, and then, like I said, I've got a little exposure in the robotics, but what is the vision for the Gemini for government, and how is it a little bit different, or what makes it special and different than, say, Gemini for enterprise or this or that?
You know, inside of government's a regulated industry, right? So there are certain requirements that are placed upon us to say if you want the technology to operate within our government environments, it needs to meet those requirements. So it could be safety, regulatory, sovereignty, you know, all of those types of things. And what we're doing with Gemini for Government and Gemini for Enterprise is basically just taking the electronically generally available capabilities that we have and just adding the extra components that government needs so then it's consumable by that specific audience. And that's really it. I mean, if you were to sort of look at it as a percentage, I'd say it's a 98% same as what we've got in commercial. We're just bringing some extra tailoring to give you, say, FedRAMP moderate, FedRAMP high, or being able to operate at IL5, or we're even working on right now higher classifications up to IL6. That's all about just really tailoring the technology that we've already got for those specific niche requirements the government has.
Okay. Yeah. Curious the difference between what you see in terms of adoption, state, local, and federal, in terms of basically bringing in active projects, but then, you know, kind of embracing the opportunity.
Yeah. So it's federal and state and local, and also bring education into that as well. the work that we've been doing at State University of New York, incredible. I mean, they've now got researchers being able to access compute infrastructure at record speed to run proper science, and that's now spilling over into the university students because we can provide the technology to them and they can use it in a very simple and distributed manner. Again, we were talking about applying for government money. There's an agent for that, Grant AI, that can go off and find the government money for you. So education's a huge one for us. State and local, I'll be honest with you, has been a little bit slower, I think, to adopt.
Okay.
And then federal, everybody knows about the work that we've been doing at the Department of Transport and the Department of War, where they've got GenAI.mil, which is Gemini completely for any of the 3 million users within Department of War, up to IL5. Never seen that before. So federal government is definitely kind of, I would say, pushing and leading the charge in some respects with regards to embracing AI. Definitely on the education side, I would say they're embracing. State and local is probably just a little bit further behind, and I think there's more work to do in that space.
Okay, and in the SUNY case, huge campus, right? Tons of kids, tons of students, tons of campuses, so many opportunities to apply. How did the team come to kind of prioritization of what to go after first?
Yeah. So it was really, sitting down with the customer and with the dean and the vice, and understanding, what is the major piece that you want to get out of the technology, and then you break it down from there. And that's why I say they've started with research.
Okay.
Because that for them is a critical line of funding to the university in a number of different ways. It has both the financial element, but there's also a prestige element if you are contributing scientific papers peer-reviewed out into the community. But then you could see when they started to realize the value and the ease by which that they could interact with the technology, they're like, we should probably be providing this to our students. And we had a meeting about it just yesterday where we were talking about what's the best way to get a freshman to use Gemini today. And we said, well, actually just give them a QR code. It's got to be a one scan, and they've got to take them straight to the UI, and they've got to be able to start asking questions. So it's kind of look at it from sort of different angles, if you like, in terms of the lowest barrier to use, which is to get you to a screen where you can enter some natural language into it, all the way up to the kind of high-end research elements.
Right. Yeah. But you better answer the question well, right, or they might not come back to that screen. That's kind of the trick. So when you're working on an engagement, what are some of the green lights you see that this is probably going to go smooth, these guys have the right attitude and the right approach, and then what are maybe some of the red flags that you're like, if you don't address some of these fundamental things, you're going to have problems, and as we know, it's usually people, process, and tech. It's usually not the tech, where it's usually a little bit more process and a little bit more people.
That's a great question, actually. From my perspective, it's if we do good scoping together, if we're doing in the pre-sales phase and we're asking the right questions, then generally we will get the right outcome when we move into post-sale and we're deploying the technology to meet the customer's use cases. Red flags for me, however, is when there's still a perception in the market that AI is extremely simple. There is actually a set of exquisite steps that you need to go through to join the probabilistic model to the deterministic processes that you've got to drive a level of consistency that allows it to be usable in government circles. So I think that there is still a misconception that what you're using on your telephone can be applied into your government industry. There is a set of steps that you need to go through, a thorough and important set of steps before you can get to that stage where you can declare that there's a victory. So that would be a red flag for me if there's a mismatch of expectations and grounding them on the basis of we need to go through this process to get you where you need to be. Let's crawl, walk, and run.
I love how you frame that to get a system that's based on percentages to basically be good enough to go into a deterministic decision. That's a great framing and really makes it a lot more palatable than, oh my gosh, I don't want to have a bunch of hallucinations happening. I'm not going to give this thing access.
That's absolutely right. I mean, when you're using the natural language interface, you're interacting with the LLM, the large language model itself. But it's a probabilistic engine at the end of the day. It's looking at predicting the next best word, and what we're trying to do is take that probabilistic model and attach it to deterministic system processes that we may have had in place for years.
Right.
But to get to do that consistency, consistently, that's really the challenge that we have, and working with our partners like eGen, that's really the rub when we're talking about implementing AI.
Okay, so last question. You talked about your passion and the mission a little bit in another answer. So I want you to go ahead and just tell us, what do you see what the opportunity is for this type of technology in public sector to help people who use those services, say a year from now, 2 years from now? What are some of the things you see coming true?
Oh, that's a big question, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I will say is the number of use cases are infinite in this space. They are infinite. It can be applied to any single process that we are working with. And I'd probably look at it as layers again. You know, you start with the basics, which is education, automating basic processes and so on. Moving up into improving citizen services. We have a customer, Veteran Affairs, where they've improved their portal to an extent where veterans can literally interact in a natural language way in order to be able to access the right services that they are entitled to. Rather than having to fill out, you know, lots of forms, waiting on telephones and so on, they can actually turn it into a self-serve and get the help that they need much quicker. And then you go up onto the higher side when we're looking at our nation's defense to make sure that our adversaries are kept at bay. Then I foresee that we will be deploying that technology in a very, very aggressive way to make sure that we can, number one, keep pace with our competitors, but importantly that we can be just slightly ahead of them should anything happen in the future.
The never-ending race between the good guys and the bad guys, right?
It'll be the new arms race, for sure.
And everybody has the same tool, except they don't worry about security as much as the good guys do, right? They'll just deploy
we always want the good guys to win.
All right. All right, well, Rob, it's been a real treat to catch up with you, and I'm really excited for the mission, because I think, you know, the public sector mission benefits everybody as opposed to just an individual company or an individual organization. So really appreciate the time today.
All right, thank you.
All righty. He's Robbo, I'm Jeff. You're watching us from the eGen Lounge here at the Mandalay Bay Google Cloud Next. It's getting late in the show. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.